Well, I'll take the number one. I'll take the discussion of number one. Might be kind of a weird one. I don't know if mine's a super popular choice.
Hmm.
My number one episode is Over the Edge.
Oh, you've gone for a new the first new Batman Adventures episode on our list. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was reluctant. I was like, I almost wondered, like, does this necessarily count? But New Batman Adventures, like when I was a kid, I was a little more, snobbish. Not snobbish, quite the opposite. I was a little more childish about how I consumed my Batman media. I almost preferred the New Batman Adventures one because it had that very angular Bruce Timm style, and I think it leaned much more into a Saturday morning it became much more of an action cartoon.
Yeah.
Whereas, I've grown older, and it's not that I never liked the boring. I've always liked those older episodes, but I guess if you made both a grab bag, you'd get like we were discussing earlier, you'll have a more bombastic supervillain if you pull right from New Adventures as opposed to taking a risk of pulling from the first three seasons and like, oh great, it's a freaking Nostradamus episode, So I've always had a real soft spot, even though I've grown to recognize what a different era it is, and largely the same. It's a loaded discussion. I'm overcompensating a bit. Ultimately, I did go with this one. So I another one. Should I? Do you think anyone watching this? It's hard to discuss this one without keying in the big spoiler of it. Should I just say it? What do you think?
We'll give a spoiler warning, but I think
Okay,
yeah, you're
if you
you're
want
right.
to,
Most people have probably seen it.
most of you have probably seen it, but if you want to see my favorite Batman episode unfettered, open up your HBO Max or whatever you have overseas or whatever methods of piracy I don't legally endorse and watch Over the Edge. This episode opens with Scarecrow knocking Batgirl off a building, sending her careening into Bullock's cop car to her death. And this episode plays it straight as though she's been killed off for real. We learn we learn towards the end that this is a dream, a nightmare of Scarecrow's fear gases. And I wonder how obvious it is from the fact that it is Scarecrow doing so in the first place, but I think they do a good job of taking it very gravely and seriously. But what we get resulting of this is that Batgirl dies. Her father, James Gordon, unmasks her and finds out her secret that his daughter is Batgirl and blames Batman. And what results is an all out war of, not Bullock, kind of Bullock, but Gordon pulling out all of his resources and declaring war on Batman. What I find so fascinating about this is that it proves that Batman's most dangerous adversary would potentially be Gordon, who's we kind of write off as an old doddering man, but he's resourceful. He has he's willing to go to certain lengths when driven, and we learn that this is a fight Batman would potentially lose, as we see in this nightmare.
I'd not thought about it that way. Yeah, but you're right. Gordon is potentially Batman's greatest foil, really. Like if he was
Mm-hmm.
ever to turn against him full on, like he's probably one of the few people who would have a chance of bringing Batman down.
Absolutely. And part of it is that this is an episode that's simultaneously really good if you know the spoiler and good not, because
Mm.
it's grave stakes if you don't know the twist. But if you do, watching it a second time, it almost makes more sense that everyone seems to just like lose their mind because this is Bab's greatest fear. So it makes sense they would go right up to like right to 11 past all reason. And at the same time, it's reasonable he would because his daughter is dead. You kind of believe it and it gets contextualized both ways with that in mind. And I think it's kind of a brilliant episode for rewatch that way.
I've always thought as well that yeah, Gordon discovering that his daughter was Batgirl and that Batman allowed her to do this would be like there would be no going back from that.
No.
Perhaps. I guess it depends. Maybe Gordon would be fine with it. Like if Gordon knew from the offset, he'd be like, okay, well, I'm a bit, I'm not happy with this, but I'll put up with it. Um, but if he didn't know, like, was this how he would react? And I think it could go either way. I think he could either be
Uh-huh.
like very proud or he'd be absolutely furious.
The
And This goes the
Yeah.
other route, obviously, and you could go either way with it, I think, if you wanted to.
And the ending of this episode toes that line really well in that he doesn't find out. We have Barbara wanting to share this with him, and they just have a nice moment where he cuts her off and is like, Barbara, honey, you're my daughter. You're smart. You're confident. You don't have to ask me for permission to do anything. And they just leave it at that. And I think that's such a it's a sweet ending, and it's a good way to toe that line of like everyone has autonomy. It kind of resets to zero, but you feel better about what could have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also, it doesn't like completely quash the possibility that if he's like, wait, what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I met just like many people who watched this show when they were growing into pubescent years. I was madly in love with Barbara, and the angst this episode put me in was like, yeah, like I just had this summer where I had the DVD box set of this season, and I didn't have school to go to distract me, so I just binged this whole season. And this episode had me like staring at my bedroom ceiling for hours because the love of my life, Barbara Gordon, had been thrown off a building, and you get this gnarly shot of her just slamming into
Oh
a
yeah.
windshield. It's so fucking brutal.
Yeah, really, yeah. Like Bullock just driving his car, like, oh my God. Yeah. Um,
Bullock, like, I love a serious Bullock too. Like, he sees this happen, he pulls his gun, no jokes, no donuts. Like, this is as far as you go, Batman. We're done here.
yeah, that's the final straw for Bullock in this one.
Ugh. My favorite Bullock moment is when he's Santa and he gives that little girl some money because he arrested her father. That's such a cute moment. There's Santa Bullock and there's Murder Bullock. The best Bullocks.
Yeah, the best Bullocks. He's a man of many emotions, Bullock.
Oh yes, great
This
character.
this episode, I think, also features your favorite Batman villain. I want to say
Uh, yes, yes. So when you first said that, I thought you meant ventriloquist because he cameos
he does.
on
Yeah,
the great bit where Harley, Riddler, Mad Hatter, and ventriloquist are all making a bid to sue Batman, and
yeah.
it is so fucking good.
They find out he's rich, and they're like, right.
And there's this caricature of fucking oh god Robert Kardashian's lawyer. Or no, sorry, OJ Simpson's lawyer, besides Robert Kardashian, his other defense attorney who had all the famous rhyming catchphrases.
Oh,
I can't.
I always go to call him by his Johnny Cochran. Is that his name in real
Yes,
life?
that's it. There's
I
like a
always go to
character,
call him Jackie Childs, which is the Seinfeld version of the
right?
character.
There's like a caricature of him. He says something like, if the bat's in the suit, you gotta pick. It's such catchier rhyme than that, but he says something like that.
Yeah, he's in the Joker's Millions one as well, and he represents the Joker. So I love that there's
Right.
just this lawyer in Gotham who will represent all the villains in their cases.
Which is such a snide like piece of real life commentary of like making fun of someone who genuinely defended a murderer in court in real life and attaching him to Batman villains is like such a like I don't think we would do that today.
Yeah,
It's so good. And then but what you really meant, yes, we get Bane, another character kind of sparingly used in this show, but I think for the better because I just don't think he always needs to be there with all the other rogues. He's a little more in his own zone. We
well,
get
he was still relatively new, wasn't he, at this point? Because I think Bane
yeah,
was introduced to the comics in like I want to say 96, 97, something like that. So
he had existed long enough. He was in the old school animated series before this appearance, at least, where he
yeah,
fought Killer Croc. But then he appears here, and then there's Mystery of the Batwoman, where he's kind of the main villain, and I think he's great in that one. I think that's all we really see of him, huh?
he's in the Superman one as well, isn't he? When he fights Superman,
Right. He fights Superman in Batman's costume.
and then yeah, I think you're right. I think that's it. I don't think he shows up again in.
He cameos in Beyond, where Venom has just like completely
Oh yeah,
drained his life force, and it's a ghastly sight.
yes. I love his design in this though. Like I don't think
Oh,
he's particularly intimidating in his This is one of the upgrades in design. I,
Hmm.
I don't like a lot of the new Batman Adventures redesigns.
Hmm.
But this episode features the Scarecrow one, which is brilliant, and the
Oh,
Bane one,
so
which I
good.
also think is really good. He looks much more intimidating, and I think, is it
Hmm.
the same voice actor or do they change him for this?
I almost feel like it might be different. I'm going to double check. I'm going to check the DCA because I feel like it's a little different, but it might have just been like a long time since he played him.
That could
Um,
be it. Yeah, there's a couple of years in between those appearances. He sounds a lot better
so,
in this. Like some of his one-liners in this are great.
oh man, I love. We had a deal. Thought about it. Didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Wham! So I see two voice actors listed here.
Is
But I would need
Henry
to see
Silva one of them? Is that right?
Henry Silva in the first. Let's see, Henry Silva in three of the four. Superman. So Henry Silva. So it's Henry Silva in those first three appearances.
Okay.
Then it's Hector Elizondo in Mystery of the Batwoman.
Ah, okay. Yeah, he definitely
Yeah,
tones down, I think, the accent for his new Batman Adventures appearances, at least.
yeah. Like in that way, he's my monster, as the line I always remember. And then in this one, he kind of centers Bane to be like a bit casual, like,
Hmm.
no, yeah, this I want carte blanche. This is how we're doing it.
He gets that. He gets a. It's not a particularly like amazing line, but he has one where he first sees Batman. He's like, "I'm pleased to remember me, Mr. Wayne," and that's his delivery is really good
Oh yeah.
in this. It's much better than his first appearance, I think. Whether that's the design or the writing or whatever, but he comes across much better here.
It's kind of a perfect cocktail because I think the problem with his old appearance was that he just didn't really fit in that older Batman show. What that show was for 3 seasons. So he kind of just like they couldn't make him look too over the top. He kind of just looks like a particularly buff dude, and he's kind of still stuck in what's ultimately a detective show. Whereas New Batman Adventures can kind of lean a little more into being a superhero show. They give him again a design that can look not out of place in Superman, so his more out of this world elements can kind of shine through, and he basically exists to have an insane fight scene that is again
Yeah.
part of somebody's nightmare. So it doesn't have to really exist by the same limits that a fight with ventriloquist or Mad Hatter would. And I think that comes together perfectly to really benefit him in his appearance here.
And he dies too, doesn't he? At the conclusion of that fight, he gets electrocuted by, is it the bat signal or something?
It's like
He
I
dies
think
a gruesome
Batman like
death.
Batman. What I like too is that Batman, the Bane says like prepare to die, and Batman says you first,
Yeah.
and knocks him into the bat signal and electrocutes him. And I wonder if that's one of the last things that happens, and I wonder if that's the signal to the audience that this isn't real. Like now nobody's acting like themselves, and Barbara's worst case scenario has just spiraled into the impossible, and that's when she wakes up.
Maybe, yes. Maybe you're
Yeah.
right. Because it's. I mean, I do like that at the end of Barbara's nightmare, she ultimately. I guess she doesn't choose for things to happen within the nightmare, but at the end of that
Uh,
nightmare, it's still Batman helping Gordon up and them sort of
mm-hmm.
having a moment of reconciliation before they both die horribly. So,
Yeah. Oh man. So maybe not. I feel like this one doesn't get discussed a ton, and I think being part of the kind of weird outliers of season 4 are might be part of it. But I think it is overlooked at least a bit, and I think it is excellent. And I almost wanted when I revisited a handful of episodes, I was like, I wonder if I can challenge myself to have a better number one. Like I wonder if I'm going to grow out of it, and something I may have overlooked before is number one. But the number three I thought of the instant that we decided we would do this is the number three I have right now. And I
okay.
mentioned a few that came close to winning out, but like I think those three have just like done so much for my idea of Gotham and Batman that it has to be those.
There's no place to run, Wayne.
Good. I want to finish him slowly.
I want him alive. Alive to rot away in Arkham, surrounded by the monsters he's created.
Poetic, but no.
We had a deal.
Thought about it. Didn't work for me. Please, give your dear Barbara a kiss from me.
Okay. Maybe we should do like a little bit of a discussion about our runners-up before we finish, because I had a load that was sort of in and out of my top 3 as well.
I covered Feet of Clay, Ventriloquist.
Oh,
Those are kind of my big ones. What are yours?
Let me think. Almost Got Him was one. What was my other one? Joker's Favor.
Millions?
Joker's Favor was another one. Joker's Millions was another one. Joker's Millions isn't that good of an episode, but it's just really funny, and it's one of those ones I can just put on, like if I need a bit of light relief or cheering up, I'll just watch Joker's Millions because it's very
I'll tangle
funny.
with Batman, but the IRS? No, thank you.
Featuring Janice from Friends as
Right.
fake Harley, who
That's right.
drives the Joker to kill her. Like, he doesn't actually do it, but he tries to shoot her in the back of the head because her laugh is so annoying. Fake Harley, any ideas? Whatever you say, Mr. G, man. And he's just like, "Argh!"
I almost had Mad Love on the topic, but
Oh, that was another one of mine, yeah.
I'd almost call that one a little over discussed. I kind of didn't feel like we needed to cover that one.
Yeah, I think so.
It's great, but it's been said why.
I didn't have like anything from New Batman Adventures. I thought about Over the Edge, but there wasn't really anything else in that series that stuck out to me, and I think a lot of that is I just don't like the art style for it. I think it looks a bit flat at times. Like they hadn't quite gotten to the point. It works really well for Superman, but I think for Batman, because that's not a very colourful show anyway, it just looks a bit sort of bland sometimes.
Totally, yeah.
And they hadn't quite gotten to that expressive, like,
Some
vibrant
characters,
Justice League.
there's some designs
Like-
I'd take, some really suffer. I agree with you. Like, there's a whole segment where they're like, let's turn a handful of Batman villains into little woodland elves, and that's how we have New Adventures Poison Ivy and New Adventures Mad Hatter.
Yeah, those ones are strange. I don't. Some of them are so weird, and it does kind of spoil it for me. And yeah, just, some of the plots just aren't that hard hitting or interesting. It's
You mean
like
to tell
you
me
said earlier.
you don't like the detective intrigue of Roxy Rocket?
Roxy Rocket's okay.
It's
Roxy
okay.
Rocket
I
and
remember being
all
a
her
kid and
weird
being like,
orgasm metaphors just being
me
thrown
being a
around.
kid, be like, what kind of erudite mysteries is Batman gonna solve this week? And it's Roxy literally straddling the fucking crystal ball. And I'm just like,
It's a strange one, but nothing else
It's
from
like-
that show really. I really love, and it's a shame he wasn't in more. Jeffrey Combs as the Scarecrow. I think that's one of my favorite villain performances because he's just terrifying. And I
It
love
took
Jeffrey
them a-
Combs in general, but he's brilliant as that character.
It took them such a long time to kind of nail down how they wanted their Scarecrow to be.
Yes.
Like, because it's like I feel like he had the most redesigns. I feel like I can picture like 3 or 4 different looks for the Scarecrow. For some reason, they just really struggled with getting his identity nailed down. And I think like just the uber gothic noose-tied Scarecrow we get in New Adventures is like the ultimate evolution of that.
I think a lot of it as well is the voice. Like, no disrespect to the guy who did Scarecrow's voice, but it just doesn't fit. He's too like verbose, and he's got like this British accent, and it just doesn't work. And I think if you had Combs there from the start, he would be much more favourably remembered. Because they kind of drop him after his first 3. It's like, let's not use him anymore. And he didn't really show up very much apart from in little cameos. So, yeah, Jeffrey Combs' Scarecrow, definitely my favourite part of the new Batman Adventures.
Wasn't anything we could do.
What's the use of providing me with test patients if you're going to lose them?
You should have monitored him more carefully.
We tried, but we had no idea your treatment would be that effective.
All the more reason to keep the subjects under close scrutiny. We don't want to give ourselves away just yet, do we?
Trying to think of I had another episode for the Two-Face two-part is really good. I like that one.
Yeah.
I like any episode with Two-Face is usually pretty good.
Hmm.
It's not an amazing one, but I like Birds of a Feather with the penguin when he's trying to go into high society and
Right. He's
just kind of making fun of him behind his back. I like that
singing
one.
along to the opera and being a big pariah.
Yeah, and he's warbling from the seat, and they're like, ugh. I like that. I like.
If you're so smart, why aren't you rich?
Yes, that was another one I was going to say. I love the Riddler in general. Riddler's Reform is also a really good one. I like the ending to Riddler's Reform always stays with me, where he's just been driven mad by the fact that Batman escaped this riddle and he can't figure out how he did it, and he's like, "Somebody tell me! I have to know!"
Ugh. That's the best part of Riddler is when you just completely break him, honestly. I am Batman!
A Bullet for Bullock. A Bullet for Bullock is one of my favourites as well.
Oh.
Where it turns out it's his landlord sending him threatening letters, and him and Batman just go on this sweep of the city and shut down a crack den. And there's a moment in the episode where Batman's like, "It's a crack den," and I'm like, "What? What did you just say?" I beg your pardon. How did they get that into the episode?
It's exact same energy as Simon the Chipmunk just going marijuana.
Yes, it's so unexpected. You don't expect him to hear it. And a shout out, of course, to Mask of the Phantasm, which is
generally all those movies. They had Mask of the Phantasm, Mystery of the Batwoman.
Mystery
Joker
of the Batwoman is awful. I want to say.
You don't like Mystery of the Batwoman?
I can't stand it. No, did you like it?
I like that one.
I guess, is that because Bane's in it? Is that the reason?
Yeah.
I can respect that. Yeah, that's fine. He gets so little. Him being the main villain, I can appreciate why you would enjoy the movie. He is good in it. I think just that movie in general just does nothing for me apart from a couple of bits here and there.
I sometimes say Return of the Joker is one of my favorite pieces of Batman media. I don't know if I still stand by that, but I really like that one too.
It is really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't done my number one. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. My number one is The Laughing Fish.
Yay! I knew your top. I feel a little bad because I knew your top three. I was waiting for you to say because this is. I watched all three of yours, and I was like, "This is the one I kind of can't wait to discuss."
It's. I like Batman. I like Detective Batman. That's one of my favorite Batman type stories. I like when he's just given a mystery to solve or a crime, and he has to piece it together and do it piece by piece, and he's finding his way there basically at the same time that you are. And this is a great it incorporates all my favorite elements from this show. So my favorite villain from the show is the Joker, and I think this is Joker's best plot. Taken from a comic story, but it's him just putting his Joker toxin into the sea and making sure that the fish have his Joker smell so he can copyright it and sell Joker fish to Gotham, which is a ridiculous scheme, and everyone in the episode points out how insane it is. And the poor guy who he goes to in going back to Sid the Squid, but you can't copyright fish. And he just has to deal with the weirdness. Just ordinary
Colonel
Gotham.
What's-His-Face has chickens, and they don't even have the mustache.
But they share my unique face. So you've got that. You've got the weirdness of it, just an absolutely insane Joker scheme, and all the comedy that entails. Because Joker in this show is funny, and the Joker should be funny. And I keep saying this: make the Joker funny again. Because he is, and he'll get out zingers and one-liners, which, probably wouldn't be very good in like a stand-up comedian act, but the way he throws them out there at these like kind of dark moments, just really
Yeah.
comical. And he has some great ones. And I talk about a Happy Meal. There's a bit at the end where it's not even a very good joke, but he just hits Batman over the head with a wrench, and he goes, "Meanwhile, back at the wrench." The way he
Is
delivers it is just really funny.
is this the first Joker appearance? I don't think it is, right?
No, this is a few episodes in. Yeah, this is they found the Joker by this point, I think, because you start off with Christmas with the Joker, The Last Laugh, Be a Clown, all of which are kind of a variable quality, and I don't think
Hmm.
are really that like strong showcasing of the Joker. And then
Right.
you get to like Paul Dini starts writing like darker ones, and you
Hmm.
get Joker's Favor, and then I think The Man Who Killed Batman, and then this are like three Joker episodes in a row, and
I
you
was
could
gonna.
tell like they'd found how to write him by that point.
Hmm. I was gonna say I almost feel like Hamill's delivery in this one is a little young, is a little green, and a little different
Hmm.
because I feel like, and maybe it's because people have been copying him and imitating him for years, but people will kind of Flanderize it straight into the rasp right over here.
Yeah.
Whereas he spends a lot of time in this one in almost what's like a game show host esque baritone bass. You know, like kind of that area that I feel like people forget he like swish kind of he's very malleable in how he deals with people, and that's a big part of his charisma.
I always think back to that interview with him as well, where he says like he didn't just want one laugh for the Joker; he wanted
Mm,
to do different ones, like depending on his mood. And I think this
right.
episode is a great example of that. Like he has a big
I,
menacing one at the start, and then he just does
that's
one where
like
he's just like
the
laughing
all-time.
insanely.
I think that first one where he takes off his hat and first walks into the patent office is
Yeah.
like the all-time like I can't believe a human made that noise just like that.
Yeah.
That drawn out like death rattle of a evil laugh that's
Yeah.
just gone down
It's
as
just,
history.
it just like escalates. Um, Great Scott! Actually, I'm Irish. And then he tells the guy not to speak. I told you not to speak! Like after he asks him a question and he answers, what is everyone talking about? Your fish? I told you not to speak!
There's some great comedy in just like how this is a great like fourth or fifth Joker episode too, because there's great comedy in how familiar Batman is with him. I
Hmm.
think the hardest I laughed the whole time was like the accountant is like kind of itching and scratching, and he's like, I don't know what it is, but the Joker's lady friend just sprayed me with that awful perfume. And it's timed perfectly. Batman just goes, get him out of here! Go!
Yeah, get
Get
this man to
down!
a hospital! Yeah.
Get this man to a hospital! Instantly knows what's going on.
Um, which kind of brings me to my second favorite thing about this. Like Bullock is my one of my favorite characters, like possibly my favorite character, excluding the villains in this show.
Mm,
And this is a great. I like how he butts heads with Batman, and this is explored a bit more in A Bullet for Bullock. But it's like, well, we both kind of just do things our own way, and maybe
yeah.
that's why we don't like each other that much. But we both get results, and we both ultimately care about doing the right thing. And this is a great episode because Bullock is just like he has no time for Batman's stuff, and he's like, "I'm gonna do this on my own, Batman. I'm going," and he just like walks out, and he does, and he's successful, and he finds the Joker. He gets captured at the end and like thrown in a shark tank, but
Mm.
he does succeed, and you get that great moment where Batman rescues him, and he's like, "You okay, Bullock?" And he's like, "Give him one for me, Batman." um,
I do like when people remember he's not incompetent, but like
no,
he's lazy and he's like unpleasant to be around, but he's like
yeah.
good at his job when he puts his mind to it.
Yeah, he's a really good detective, and that's
Yeah.
Gordon wouldn't keep him around if he was like an incompetent idiot who was corrupt.
Right.
He's got his own way of doing stuff, but he's good at his job, and I like that dynamic of this, and just like the way Batman is on kind of piecing things together. And like dissecting the fish. And I like how they give Batman jokes in this show as well. That doesn't happen anymore. And there's a great bit in this where he's got one of the Joker fish on a plate, and Alfred comes in behind him, and he's like, "Dining in tonight, sir." And Batman just looks at him with like a roll in his eyes, like, "The dissection tray, please, Alfred."
Not this episode, but like, I feel like you could never get Kevin Conroy today to do the line delivery when he sees Killer Croc in the hospital and just smugly goes, "Later, alligator." Like,
Yeah.
He's actually really good at the like more smug, sometimes like wisecracking side of Batman.
He gets those one-liners off really well. I can't remember, does he have any in this one? I don't think he does really. You get the amazing Jokerfish advert in this as well. Which is, "It's me fabulous Jokerfish." When he's like putting on like a sea captain voice.
I think it's like his guards are like dressed up as a family or something.
Yeah, they've got like
and Harley has to like break character because she hates fish so much.
Yeah. Boss, I got a problem with fish. Eat it.
You get to be my little mermaid, Harley.
Just puts the giant fish costume on top of it.
Just that great half-lidded stare from inside the shadows of
Yeah.
the mouth from Harley. She just had enough.
Yeah, that's her. What does she say? She's like, "You're really sick, you know that, boss?" And he's like, "Mm-hmm." I love how the end of the commercial as well ends with him like an immediate mood swing, and he's like, "Coming to a shop near you, just as soon as that nasty Mr. Francis gives me my share of the profits."
Oh my. It's such a. I was like, I like my top three. I'm a little sad none of them have Joker at all, but I'm sure Martin will have at least one really good Joker thing. And here you come with arguably three Joker episodes.
Yeah, basically. They are my favorites, I have to say. And they incorporate him into a lot of really good episodes.
Yeah, and you would get the feeling of, oh, they're shoehorning the Joker. I don't think he's ever misused.
I don't think so either, no. And I think they get to a point as well where he's kind of not the focus of a lot of the episodes he appears in, but you examine how other characters interact with him. Like one of his best, I think, is Harley Quinn, where it's just him with like a nuclear bomb gonna blow up Gotham, but most of the episode is just Harley, and you only really get to him at the end. But he's great in that one as well.
I do think there's always the slight temptation to check in on Joker because he just always he can sum something up really well. I'll never forget the Justice League cartoon had a deleted scene, the episode that takes place in Gotham, where Cersei turns Wonder Woman into a pig and Batman has to help her. And they said they boarded a scene and had to cut it where Joker's like setting up a trap for Batman and is like, "This'll be my greatest plot yet. I can't wait to get Batman's goat." Then he sees Batman, unconcerned, walk by, cradling Wonder Woman as a pig and go, "I'll get you help. I know exactly who I want to speak to. You won't have to suffer much longer." And Joker sees this and is just like, "No, we're going home. We're not doing that. Nope. We're not here."
You can stick him into so many. Like a good example of just throw the Joker in there and it immediately elevates the episode is The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne, where it's like it's him, Penguin, and Two-Face who all show up, and that episode's not an amazing one, but it's fun. It's one I used to have on VHS, so I rewatched it loads. But it has like so many good Joker lines, and he only shows up for like the last 10 minutes. It's just one after the other, just like brilliant one-liners just being thrown off. Like, "Get out of my face, clown! Which one?" And then he's on the plane, and they're gonna throw Strange off the plane, and he's like, "Remember, it's not the fall, it's the sudden stop." And then when the plane lands, like Joker with a parachute jumps out, and he just lands on the ground because the plane's already stopped, and he just crashes into the ground. And there's the bit where they're all chasing after Doctor Strange. Like, Two-Face pulls a gun, Penguin pulls an umbrella, and Joker just pulls a bouquet of flowers.
It is just like the key to writing him, I think, is remembering that he is in his own world. He isn't fully lucid, you know? Like, he's in on the joke, but there's a certain point where he believes that he's making sense.
Well, this series always gives me the sense that he's not as insane as he might appear. And
right.
Perhaps he might be faking it a little bit, because they allow him moments of like you say, like lucidity and just him being kind of normal, and then he'll suddenly just turn. But they treat him like a normal person who's not a normal person, but they treat him like he's a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what more recent Joker portrayals lose.
Right. Well, I think that is an excellent rounded off round of 6 top threes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
3 elite episodes in the consideration of 2 people with only minor credentials.
Yes. A fine series. A very fine series.
Yeah, one of the greats. Oh, my phone's ringing again.
Hello, Animates!
Joker, I was hoping you would call again. Joker, you want to come over and play my favorite Sega Dreamcast game, Crazy Taxi?
Crazy Taxi? More like normal taxi!
Good night, everybody.
What are you reviewing next time, Animates? Street Sharks again!
ATV Guppies, Joker.
How did Mark Hamill survive doing the Joker? I feel terrible after that.
Whew.
Look alive, wage slaves! Presenting that caliph of clowns, that mogul of mountebanks, the one and only Joker!
Great Scott! Actually, I'm Irish. Good morning, Mr. Francis. Please allow me to introduce my associates. Miss Quinn.
Enchanty.
And Messrs. Their names escape me for the moment. No matter. We gentlemen of business have arrangements to discuss.
Arrangements?
For my fish, of course. This has all been worked out far in advance, Francis. You are merely the last tiny cog in my grand design. So don't speak to me again, okay? Now, what is everyone in town talking about?
Your fish?
I told you not to speak!
Ooh, fish stinkeroonie! All better.
As I was saying, since every fish in Gotham now bears my famous and frankly fabulous face, I should be getting a profit from every fish product sold. Let's say a nickel per fish sandwich, 50 cents for sardines, millions of dollars a day to finance my happily hedonistic lifestyle. So, which of your tedious copyright forms do I fill out first? You may speak now.
No one can copyright fish. They're a natural resource.
But they share my unique face. Colonel What's-His-Name has chickens, and they don't even have mustaches.
I can't help it. It's the law.
Oh, trying to cheat the Joker, are you? Well, we'll see who has the last laugh. You have until midnight to change your mind, Francis, or you'll be the poorest fish of all.
Bye-bye.
He's crazy.